or here on social media or on TV or by the actual media or by fans of Notre Dame or other college football fans, whatever it is. It's a statement that people are running with that I've seen, and we are going to discuss. Is it a hot take or a deep fake? So before we get into it, hit subscribe if you haven't yet. I'd appreciate it very much, right? So let's get into this. Here's the first one. Now, I've been seeing lots of this. Social media posts, mostly Twitter. That's where I hang out. That's cesspool. For some reason, I'm addicted to, right? I've been seeing a lot of this the last couple months. Fans of other teams acknowledging that Marcus Freeman is doing a fantastic A-plus job in recruiting so far. His first cycle as the head guy at Notre Dame. But while they acknowledge this, the back end of the statement is always the same when it's coming from other fans of other teams. Sure. Marcus Freeman's doing great now, but they all predict this will not last past this year. They are saying this is a honeymoon phase, excitement thing early on, but this is going to fizzle out, not last. This, my friends, is a deep fake take. Deep fake take. Here's what this is. You know it already. You know damn well what this is, this angle. All this is these fans of other teams that we're trying to recruit against, and we're winning a lot of these battles that, quite frankly, we're not used to winning because of the Bayou Bengal Brian down there with his family. Okay? These fans of these other teams had never had to go through this worry of Notre Dame being a serious recruiting operation. Now they do have to worry about it. They don't like it. So, this is a deep fake take. And all it is these other fans hoping that this is a one-year thing. They're hoping. Notre Dame has a bunch of injuries, 3 or 4 or 5 losses. It all falls apart. Negative recruiting against Freeman. No hype, no nothing. And that things cool off. And that this is a one-and-done deal. All right? So, I guess, let's start here. I guess I'll give these people credit because most of the ones I've actually interacted with, whether it's Michigan, Ohio State, Clemson, whoever, at first they didn't want to acknowledge Marcus Freeman's exceptional recruiting. Now it's to the point we're far enough along with the talent you can compare what Marcus is building to Kelly's previous classes, see that things are different. The facts are the facts. So these other fans can't say it's not real because there's too much documentable evidence that it is real and it is impressive and it is really good and really strong and something new. A new level of recruiting we didn't see with the old guy, right? So I at least give them credit that they're acknowledging now that he's doing a really good job. They're just hoping that next year goes horrible and nobody wants to play for Marcus after that. I just don't think that's going to happen. This recruiting is not being done with smoke and mirrors and fake promises and everything else. It's relentless and it's genuine and it's just getting started and it's not going to go away. It's just not. Even if Notre Dame has a bad year next year, bad luck, a lot of injuries, like whatever it is, and they lose more games than any of us want, expected, whatever. I still think, well, here's number one. The relentlessness of this effort and this staff is not going to change because of that. If anything, it's going to make them work harder. If they go through a rough patch next year, they're going to work harder. And they already work hard, right? But as good as Marcus Freeman is with his recruiting and his recruiting pitches, if next year goes rough, which is the only chance any of these other fans have of Marcus's recruiting falling off the table, right? I still think under that scenario, he will be able to pitch. We need you to help us get through what you're seeing. And last year's class was a big part of it. You could be the cherry on top. I think he could do that after next year, even if it's a rough year. Pitch to those guys. You got to be a part of the rebuild to get out of this. And this is working from the assumption that this is a worst case scenario, that he doesn't have a good next year to build off of, which makes this whole discussion moot. But if it does get rough, that's where you use we're still turning this roster over. We need you to be a big part of that. Let's go. So 24 is already off to a good start. I think this is a hopeful, deep fake take because these people all are losing their minds that Notre Dame's so good at recruiting now. So I just don't think, even if there's a couple dumb losses next year, it's going to stymie this entire operation. They work too hard. The pitch is too good, too clean, too genuine. I don't think it's going to fall off at all, even if the worst case scenario happens that it's a rough year next year. Now, here's what I will say. While this take now is a deep fake, if he has 2 seasons as head coach, next year you lose a few dumb games. If that happens a second year, I think then you're going to get to where there's a little bit of a body of work. People start questioning his head coaching chops. Then maybe after 2 years of on-field, then we could talk about the negative recruiting aspect and how people are going to try and go at him. But for next year, nope. These are people that are mad Notre Dame's recruiting at an elite level. They do not want it to continue. And in their minds, they're thinking, get through this honeymoon phase, lose a bunch of games, and it'll all cool off. Marcus Freeman will have no buzz. Notre Dame's recruiting goes back to Brian Kelly era. Asleep at the switch. Not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. If anything, I could actually argue the opposite. The year it should be slow recruiting is now because nobody knows if he's a good head coach or not. So theoretically, people should be saying, you sure you want to go there with a guy who's never been a head coach before? Theoretically, I could argue now would be the time for the lull. But it ain't. It's not the case. And that is very, very telling. So all this is a deep fake take by anti-Notre Dame people that do not want us to succeed in recruiting. They are praying Marcus falls on his face next year. Notre Dame recruiting goes back to what it was, 1 year problem. Not gonna happen. Deep fake take. Good night.